So thanks you guys for coming over to meet Dwayne today. The opening was last night. I don't know if you were here, and Dwayne gave a really good talk up here. So this will just be a little more casual. Dwayne can walk around and talk about his work, and you can ask him questions. And then he's got the long drive back to Rapid City this afternoon. So. But it's been great. We've been really glad to have Dwayne. Our curator, Steve Blucher, met Dwayne a couple years ago, maybe, in Great Falls at the Indian Art Show there. And came back to the staff and was pretty excited about the work, you know, and then I think you probably sent us some images and we looked at them, and it's been on the burner for a couple of years. We were just waiting for the space. We're scheduled out usually a couple of years in advance, a year, sometimes 2 years, exhibits. So we finally had the space and got the work over, and I think it's just a really, really great show. So I'll just turn it over to Dwayne.
Okay. Thanks, John. I've never got treated so good by a art institution, I guess. They put me up in this really high-class condo over there overlooking the river, and what a view. Geez, felt like I was gonna get the place dirty. Usually they stick you in Hotel 6 and say, make sure you take all your work in the room at night. But that's the major cities. I don't think Missoula looks that scary to me. I've been doing this kind of work for close to 30 years, and probably professionally since 1987 I've been doing this kind of work. But some of my earlier pictures that I started working with and drawing is a little bit more reserved. They're more pretty, I guess. When I first started doing ledger art, I noticed that there's a real void. That's what this stuff's called, ledger art. But there was a big void that it's a masculine form of art. So most of this ledger art that you see from the 1800s was done by males. And there was a real void of women images in it. When I did a lot of research at the Smithsonian and some other colleges and things that have this stuff in their archives, I noticed that I was looking for like practical daily life's experience, just what did they do 100 years ago? And the only visual way you could find out is, through our culture, it's basically these are renditions of what everybody was doing, just daily life. That's what I wanted to know. I already knew that there was a war on. And the Indian Wars, and I know there's bloody battle scenes on these. A lot of them are very warrioristic. Just like all male-dominated society, everything's historical by what war you won, or who you threw out, or what you took, or all of that. All of those images were pretty well rendered, and most people that look at this really want to collect something that has that imagery, that warrior image of those special times, I guess, of the closing of the West. So what I started doing is I noticed I grew up on a reservation, and I never seen one warrior run across the plains with a painted horse and one of these on. Never seen that. So most of the guys I knew were kind of overweight and just really bad sense of humor, That was most of them. So I started really I did good selling a lot of those old style images on this paper. It's really eclectic, and it was decorative in somebody's house if they wanted to put up some lances, bows and arrows, and a warrior scene, for decoration. But I thought the work really didn't have no relationship to the people, and I felt we was given selling the public a bad horse. There was really nothing that related to us as contemporary people, and I'm not very well educated. I never went to art school or anything. I just always liked to draw. So when I first started drawing, like I say, I was trying to, render the same images that were already done, the life experience. I looked at these people that did those earlier drawings as journalists, because most of them couldn't write, that this was their way of putting down in imagery events of themselves or friends or anything, and bravery was always an honored thing. So the original concept of this came from what we call our winter count calendars that were on hides. And these were just pictographs, a line drawing, basically telling of an event, of an important event of between snows, you know, it went by winter. That's why they call it winter count. But when it was, this paper was first came onto the plains, the ledger paper, that was the first paper that came out into the prairie, that some of these were captured, you know, by force and taken. And a lot of the Native people at that time, having their experience with the United States government, knew that this paper with markings on it, they didn't know what it said. You got to remember, they put it into context. Didn't really know what this paper said on there, but they knew that those markings had power over them. And the people that brought those paper, even as fragile as it is, had power over them. So a lot of these earlier ones that were taken by force from freighters and things like that, they drew their power on top of those things. You know, this is, you know, what I'm capable of. You know, it's kind of like a gangland over tagging. You know, I hate to say it in that context, but that's kind of like that warrior spirit. It's, you know, you know, this is what I'm capable of. You know, it's basically what it was. So in the last 20 years, this stuff became a little more popular again. In the late 1800s and clear up until like 1940, until some of those men that fought those battles were dying in their late 80s and 90s years of age, were being commissioned to draw these, of the last Great West, final finishes on the Great West. So the style of this work really never went out. And when I first started doing it in Native markets, that they didn't have a category to put it in. They always had put me in like studio art or charcoals or something. And now there's a category for it in most Native art markets, and there's several ledger artists. Anybody that gets a ledger book now is a ledger artist. But the thing that I have problem with, and it's just my own personal problem, is a lot of these young guys, I see them making the same mistake I did. They're reenacting the 1880s, that romanticized warrior stuff, you know, and it's a good sell and it's decorative, but it really has no relationship to our contemporary lives. And I always thought our lives are just as important as any of our past family or ancestors. Our lives are just as important. That's why we hold everything for our grandchildren, because we know that there's a time we step aside and their time has arose to take that, you know. So I don't look at the modern things. You'll see kind of idioms, cultural idioms, I'll use phrases and stuff like that, that are kind of reversed from the Native view to the outside world, I guess. I mean, the reservation view, I have a lot of friends that live on a reservation who are really wonderful racists. They just don't know they are. They just think that's a luxury held for white people, how they say it, you know. It's like with a kind of a scowl, you know. It's like, but they don't have any friends that are non-Native, you know. They never sit down. They just seem to think that if you're not Native, you're born with a silver spoon. Here's the world on a platter. You know, go out there and own everything. You know, that's that stereotype thought process of people who are in that environment of hate and all that, you know, bitter. You got to learn that you got to let things go. And that's why I do this art, because I think it's a way we could laugh about these awkwardness, I guess. And once you start kind of lightening your spirit, you find out that we're all kind of in the same boat together. There ain't nobody that's got it made any better than anybody else. But I always thought it was stay true to kind of like the way you live is actually your art should have some kind of reflection in it. This picture it really gets a lot of attention here. There's some swear word in it, you know, some profanity, but a lot of Native people felt that the American government just forced everything down their throat. Didn't even allow them to build their own culture up with this contemporary life, you know. So, yeah, I know it's a kind of an aggressive look, but that's, you know, the honest truth of it. It was, you know, you can't speak your language. You now, you might, like I like to tell a lot of people, my dad was born. He wasn't American when he was born. He was still under a POW type of thing. Reservations were like ghettos in Europe during the 40s. You weren't a citizen until 1929, American citizen. So my mother was born after that. So she was born American citizen, but my grandparents were born non-Americans. You know, they were born in whatever was before that. So everybody say Native American. Well, you could really say that until like 1929, until they, you know, made them American citizens. So it's, you know, there's so much history that they don't teach us in school. I went to school on a reservation, learned absolutely nothing about any other natives other than pilgrims came, we ate dinner, and yeah, that was it. I didn't even say what brand of Indians helped them, you know. Just pilgrims. That's a generic term in itself, you know. Because we all know that what Puritans were they from Europe? You know, were they German? Were they English? Or, you know, they didn't really specify. And as contemporary people, we all know the Irish don't get along if you're Catholic or Protestant. You know, so there's these things. There's things that we should be teaching in school that has this. Just because you have less or more melanin in your skin doesn't make you any better or less important than the next person. That's my kind of, but I use a lot of humor in my work too, like rectum hell, damn near killed him. That's probably the worst punchline in any joke that boys tell each other since junior high school, you know. And I always thought that was kind of it's a kind of a takeoff of one of those traditional drawings where a warrior's on his horse, but I jazzed up the title to basically make it a pun, because I'm kind of making fun of the contemporary ledger style of work that has that relationship to more or less it's marketable, really marketable, but you know, it sells well, but it don't say anything. So that's more or less the point that I'm trying to make there. And as far as American, you know, things go, I mean, Gary Owen, he's trying to learn to play Gary Owen on a music flute. I mean, on a wooden native flute. But Gary Owen, a lot of people don't know that's Custer's marching tune, you know. That was what Custer played when he took his troops into conflict. And I have nothing against Custer. I was in the military, and I know in the military you're there to do a job. You got a boss, and you got to execute your job as best as you can. You know, it's not up to you to have a me moment, I guess. So. But there's a piece on the other end of the wall. It's called Cigar Store. I think you can see it from here. But that's, you know, I guess it's a few generations back, that the Indian always represented the tobacco in front of an Indian would represent. But I understand why this happened, because back in the day there was a lot of illiterate people that couldn't read, so that the cigar store, the Indian out front sold, you know, we sell tobacco here. That was, you know, a symbol saying where to get your tobacco, because they couldn't read. So basically I just kind of reversed the role of the wooden Indian to the wooden white guy, you know. And I say that in a I don't know, you know, as like I say, most of my friends are kind of reverse. I kind of draw some of these pictures from their perspective, because that's a reality to them. You know, even though I can't educate them or make them better, you know, there's no pill that you could give them to help them. You know, there's some people think that, well, yeah, it's okay to be bitter, but you got to have understanding too, or you'll never get fixed. You know, yeah, hate lasts forever, love's for like that first 3 months, and you're stuck with them for 50 years. But and this one's another one. The William Tell Overture. You know, we always call that the Long Ranger song. A lot of people didn't know that one either. But you know, it was another piece of classical music, and I always tried to make a point of it that some of the songs that we sing in this country culturally are older than this country before Columbus got here. Some of these songs are so old we can't even tell you when they were composed. And the funny thing about music is we all know if there's vocals, words to the song, the person that composed it could probably tell you exactly what it meant, the significance of it. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, listening to the radio, and Elton John used to have these quirks in his songs that we'd always say, well, what is he saying there? You know, but we all thought we knew what he meant by his words, but because we could say all the words, but we had no idea what the composer was meaning by the sentiment of it, you know. And that's the way some of our traditional songs are. They're just so old that we have no clue who wrote them, how long ago. But we do sing the, you know, some of the same prayer songs. I always asked some of the older guys where these prayer songs come from, you know. It's not a big deal. They're satisfied knowing it's a mystery. You know, there's no reason to put it under a microscope or do any real digging on it, you know. So I like that about the culture, that there is mysteries, and why solve them? You know, accept the mystery, because that's part of life, is having that mystery. Here's one over here. I make this in a comical sense. It's called hookah hey. And yeah, that's ganja. And that's kind of, in the 70s, we got introduced to marijuana, you know. And I make light of it now, but there was a time where I thought, you know, everybody was trying to explore things, and we didn't have the internet. We was lucky if 1 in every 100 houses even had a TV with 1 channel on it. But I make light of this because this was a come of an age, I guess, for a lot of people. And some of it really never helped anybody that I knew. It didn't help me. As a matter of fact, it held me back probably 10 years. I probably could have proceeded with a lot more things. It seemed to kill all of my ambition to do anything, you know, and I just kind of got numb, basically. And it was a good way to escape reservation life, not having a job or place to work or anything like that. So that's kind of one of those excuses that we all use for somebody that's trying to, you know, feel better. And as a peer group, we all were idiots equally, you know, so. But hookah, this is hookah hey. This is a play on our Lakota word. Hookah hey is what our warriors would cry at going into battle. It's a good day to die. That's what it means. So modern version of that. And these ones with, like the one we looked over there, that's the kind of the representation of the government and the native guy is, I do a series of these I call them leveling the playing field. It's kind of like a child's way of redo, do-over. That's kind of way I looked at doing these, and I have these in several different ways of looking at it. I guess I have them playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Battleship, chess, you know, just different. Some, I think one is the Xbox, and you know, it's just real contemporary stuff. But I think that's something that we need to always keep under the public's eye, is because the government and natives, nobody really cares about us sometimes. We kind of fall under the surface when it, you know, like when, I hate saying politicians' names, but Sarah Palin, when the Tea Party first came out, and we're going to take our country back, you know, it scared Indian people. You know, because it's like, yeah, you took it from us once, how much more is there to take, you know? They never understood that, you know, there's a whole group of people out there that lost a hell of a lot more than a couple dollars in the stock market, you know? And that Tea Party was kind of frightening, actually, because this is going to render in the old politicians. A lot of people don't know, in 1962, Kennedy came out to our, President John Kennedy came out to our reservation, and they were building a power station on the Missouri River. And they gave the people there 72 hours to move out. It was 80 people, and the Army Corps of Engineers and the military, the state police came out and moved everybody. You had 72 hours, pack up everything you had and leave. So, because the place was being flooded, and it didn't flood for 6 months. So, you know, a lot of people don't, you know, if this happened to anybody else, they might have found out about it nationally, but at that time it was acceptable. You know, it was really acceptable to displace families real quick like that without any, you know, without asking any permission basically from a culture. So that's kind of why some of my pictures are kind of really adamant about the scales being kind of unbalanced. But I'm not that intelligent, so don't let that fool you. Here's a picture though that what I consider to be what is really contemporary ledger art, you know, as far as that goes. It's a real incident. It involves real people that I know and myself in this image. And I used it as a kind of a humorous event because a friend of mine kind of reminded me of this not too long ago. But the year we got our Letterman's jackets, I had a girlfriend who was going to beauty school. And she talked me into getting this new haircut that all the teen magazines, David Cassidy was really big, the Partridge Family. He had this haircut called the shag. And so she talked me into give me the shag haircut, but I always thought it was kind of funny because now that I look back at it, and I said, that wasn't really the shag, that was the mullet. I was just ahead of it. They just renamed it a couple years later. And I was ahead of my time there. But I was giggling, telling my daughter, I said, I really needed to cut the sleeves off all my flannel shirts when I started having that haircut. Redneck look. I don't know. These are some of the friends that made fun of me, but you know, as I look at this picture when I was drawing it, these three guys all died really quick, right? I mean, before they were 30 years old. And one of them is right after high school. All alcohol-related incidents on our reservation. Traffic deaths are big time on our reservation due to alcohol. And it's just that thing that the young people don't really have anything to show them of what they can do, possibilities. Everybody's unemployed, no employment. So there's really no work ethic built up in history of families. You know, my grandfather did this, my father did this, I did this. You know, most of them were unemployed all the way through, 70% unemployment. So it's hard to rationalize that, you know, because some of these pictures really do have that truthfulness to them. And this picture is really the racist thing I was telling you about. Wow, real full-blooded white people. This is how my friends see the world. And the other problem is they all look alike. Every stereotype, they smell bad, they all look alike. You know, they all, you know, it's hard to, like I say, you can't give people a pill and fix them. And yeah, they are my friends. I've known them forever. God love them, but you know, and they're very spiritual now, which really makes me kind of, you know, kind of lack of understanding. But they're really open for non-natives that come to our reservation and want to Sundance and know about our culture. You know, it's really strange kind of relationship, but at the same time, there's this really undertow of economic relief that comes in with these people that come in and they say, oh, you poor, whatever, and they try to help financially. And you don't do that to poor people because these people already, you know, been given government surplus and fed and kept in a cage forever and just never really, you know, helped, just fed, you know. And we all know that you could feed zoo animals and they'll bite you if you stick your hand in there, you know, so. That's the way I look at it from my perspective, but that's because I moved off the reservation. All my sisters, my whole family still lives there, and I can't understand them sometimes.
Isn't that your dog, the non-native?
Oh yeah, my dog, he's in, my dog June, he's the one over there, that's a self-portrait, and that's why I hate self-portraits. And my family always said I endowed it with too much buttocks. Said I couldn't draw it any smaller. But, you know, I do have critics at home that look over my shoulder and shake their head, but My dog's in that picture, this one, and the one with the third wheel. It's the little dog looking at the couple under the blanket. But she's my assistant and my muse. So she ends up in a lot of my pieces. And this picture, Andy's a real Democrat. Basically, the donkey is in our Lakota is shungshula. That's how you say donkey. But I knew Andy, but Andy he was just stubborn. That's why I drew him on a donkey. And he thought Obama was going to save our reservation because every president comes to the poorest county in America to say, "You poor bastards, we're going to fix this." And it stays the same. We all know that, you know. There's everybody's heard some of those old tired jokes about, you know, the politician going to the reservation and he's going to do a speech out by a cow pasture, and the Indians all come, and every time he finished saying something, they all go, "Hoo yeah," and after he's done talking, you know, tell him to watch out, don't step any hoo yeah on the way back to your car. That's that same joke. Lakota humor is really dry. Some of it is kind of awful, actually, and it's kind of witless in a way, but it's funny. I find it, you know, that when I go home, somebody always got to tell me some joke, because they know that I draw a kind of a whimsical type of drawing, so they always have to try to tell me a joke to fill it in. This picture here it's a couple of my friends who come back to South Dakota. Both of them live in other states, and they're married to girls from other communities. And every year they come back to, and they stop in my house either before or after. And these are Sundance items that they wear when they Sundance. I don't want to talk about that stuff too much, but every year they always talk about how out of shape they are now that they're over 50 and everything. And one of them is always blaming his wife for shrinking his Sundance apron in the dryer. It's like, yeah, right. And every year those Sundance aprons get fancier and fancier. They used to just be a cloth, and now they got decorations all over them. I don't know. I guess everybody wants to look good, I guess, when they're in church. I don't know. But that, you know, that's about the extent of it. If you have any questions, I'll answer.
Not exactly a question because I don't expect an answer, but just can't help just kind of stumbled in here yesterday and tremendously impressed with the medium and your work and your presentation. Notice nobody has eyes, and
oh yeah.
You know, and I don't know if that's anything you have to say about, but it just struck me now as we went through.
Oh, that's one of those questions. A kid asked me that. How come you don't put eyes on it? I said, because nobody knows where they're going. They all pretend to. You know, everybody pretends that they're in charge of something. I know ER docs that are just freaking out on the inside. Oh my God, you know. But they have to act like, you know, they know where they're going with it, and they have no clue. You know, we're all like that. We all have our people moments, you know.
Second, from just what you're saying, and see how much, well, I used to hang out with an old rancher guy, and he's sitting in his rocker chair. He was in his 80s, and there's a lot of broncs out there ain't been broke.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of life out there that you have yet to.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's the thing is I went from doing art just for making a good living and selling it well to trying to enhance people's thought process a little more. You know, it's not my perspective, it's more or less kind of a generational thing that people don't really know how to talk about Indian issues, you know. And first off, they even say Indian, you know, well, Native American. I knew this guy who's a Ojibwa. He's an artist, but he's in his mid-60s now, really well-known artist, and he said, well, when I was growing up as a kid with Indians, then we became Ojibwa, now we're Anishinaabe, and he says, they change it again, I'm going back to being an Indian. You know, you know, it's like Sioux people, you know, we never called ourselves Sioux, you know, with Ogallala Lakota, that's what we were, but they, you know, Europeans said we're Siouan language, so it was all Sioux or something. And so in the 60s and 70s, somebody say, well, are you Sioux? You know, it's like, yeah, it's close enough, whatever, yeah. But it's kind of confusing, you know, now that the political correctness and they retitled everything, so now Native American is the thing, and it's like, you see the picture over there of how we become Americans.
So. It was kind of a slur because it wasn't America.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed, I did an art show with some Aboriginal guys from Australia, and I kind of like that term, Aboriginal. You know, that's kind of what they call them in Canada too, you know, the Aboriginal people. So I think that's kind of it's not a demeaning term or, you know, inclusion or exclusion term. I think it's just cool. But it's better than having a swear word and then your culture. Yeah. I think in Dances with Wolves, one of my favorite phrases was, well, when he asked that guy on the wagon, well, where are the Indians? And he goes, Indians, goddamn Indians. You want to see them, not unless they're dead. You know, I do that. I watch a lot of movies, but that's because when I'm working, I usually just put a movie in and just working out. And there's phrases in different movies. I told them the other night when they had the opening, one of my favorite movies was Little Big Man, came out in 1970. And I said, it was kind of like a phrase that summed up my life growing on the reservation because I'm mixed culture. Both my parents were mixed, you know, so both my parents were half, you know, Indian and half white. So, and not even from the same tribe. On my mom's side is Cheyenne and Italian, and my dad is English and Lakota. So, but my mom grew up on Lakota, so, you know, there's a phrase in Little Big Man where he's talking about, as an old man, and he says, if it wasn't for the white man trying to kill me for being Indian, it was the Indian trying to kill me for being a white man. That was kind of the summation of my growing up on the reservation, because the community I'm from, you were pretty accepted, you know, that whatever pigment you were, but to an outside community on the reservation, you looked at as a mixed blood, you know, a Yiska they call it. It means the other language, which wasn't a bad term in the old days, because that was just a reference of somebody who spoke a different language. It didn't mean white, it just meant somebody who spoke a different language. Cultural, and we have this thing called hunka in our culture. It's a part of our spiritual life. Is we can adopt people as a family member, and that family, in the spiritual world, there is no color. So that's like, you can adopt a full-grown adult as your brother or your father. But there's premise to it too. You have to prepare, like what they call a wopula. This is a giving back to the community. So usually you save for a year all of these comfort items and you give them out, and it's open to the basically public, whoever comes. There's really no invitation, but it's a big feed, it's a big event, and from that day on, you're family. And that doesn't mean just because you adopted a brother that he ain't gonna take something from you someday, girlfriend, tools, and there's no divorce, you know, that's still your brother. Yeah. So a lot of people that from the outside, I noticed they liked some of those things about our culture. So when they got really, they had this what I call a glazed over, reborn Christian look on their face when they first come in and they find all this pretty stuff, you know, it's all neat, you know, and they want to be part of it. And they don't realize this is lifelong. You know, it's not 4 years, you got to learn everything and you're done, you get a degree and you go off, you know. Well, I've seen some make family and then they did businesses together on the outside and the business failed and now they don't talk to each other. It's like, too bad. That's still who you said it was. You went through the whole thing. There's no, you know, no divorce. That's for the rest of your life. That's going to be your family, and everybody's going to know that they attended the event that you took that member as a family. So, it used to be a law in the tribe where you had to spend $1 to enroll that person into the tribe. Yeah, so they didn't get land, they just got recognized as a member of that tribe. In other words, pigment of skin and language didn't mean anything at the beginning. Yeah, I think it was only, this racism started really good in the 1920s, probably about that time, and it advanced up into contemporary time. I think before that they thought in a different, real traditional sense that family's family. You support family, period, you know. But now it's kind of used as a kind of a, it's really neat to go live with the Indians and learn their ways, learn their words. Yeah. It's really funny to meet somebody from the South who speaks Pidgin Lakota. They have a kind of a twang on the language. It kind of sounds strange, but it's kind of funny at the same time. You don't want to laugh and insult them because they're trying so hard to learn it. So, but that's the world as it is today, you know. And some of the three-dimensional stuff that you see out here, you know, that's ledger paper too. And I started doing that because I got really tired of doing flat art. You know, culturally, traditionally, our art was very flat and two-dimensional. There was no, you know, depth to it. So I said, there's just something else that I got to do with this paper that's that has something remarkable to say. That how, like I was telling you earlier, how fragile paper is, but yet how much power it holds over all of us still today. You know, there's all of us here have paper somewhere that holds a power over you. And you check your mail and Discover tells you how much power they have for you, like 22%. But if there's any more questions, I'm happy to.
On some of your ledger paper, I know some of it's just plain, you know, there's no writing on. Others,
Yeah.
there's writing on.
Yeah.
Is it actual old writing? Or?
Yeah, it is. And some of the earlier commissioned pieces, they bought whole books because they didn't have art paper, you know, so they commissioned, you know, some of the artists, some of these guys, and just gave them a book that had no writing in it. So they were basically paid. I think Amos, the only really piece I know about a price is Amos Badhart-Bull in 1906 was commissioned by a professor's wife from the University of New York. He commissioned Amos $35 to do a ledger book. I think it had 60 images in it. But that was the only one I knew that how much, you know, $35, and that was 1906. So that was pretty, I guess, pretty good money, you know, from what I understand.
And rifles with
Yeah, yeah, because you could probably, you know, buy a good gun for, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mhm.
Do you have any problems still finding a ledger paper now? Do you have
No,
unlimited supply?
no, there's quality of paper that I won't work with. The wood pulp, I'll do these three-dimensional things because you have to decidify it. And there's a lot of nice chemicals nowadays where you can decidify it. And as far as the stuff I learned through trial and error, that things I did 20 years ago, I didn't do any of that stuff too. I didn't put acid-free mat on, and on all this ultraviolet glass and all these other things that you could, you know, I didn't know about museum quality. Like I said, I'd never taken an art class or framing class or anything, so I had to learn all this process just by time and grade, basically. So. The paper that you see there is linen paper. Most of this is linen paper. The paper with the self-portrait, that's 1896 paper, and the other one's 1936 paper. Those are election returns from Cumberland County at Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I know a curator there, and she gave me a real nice ledger book. So most of the linen paper I use, it's really a high quality. It's like money. It will last quite a long time. But that's the thing is if you're going to start collecting and you look at this ledger paper from other artists, you got to ask, you know, if it's already framed, you got to ask them, is this UV glass? Is it acid-free? Or, you know, what type of paper is it? Is it wood pulp? Because if it's wood pulp, the shelf life's not very good. It's better to buy a print of something that you like that, if there's a print available of it.
Do you have prints?
I do, but I didn't bring any. I don't sell, I got a website, but I don't really sell anything on my website. You know, I don't think the you know, a computer screen really justifies buying art. I wouldn't buy art on the internet, you know. I mean, I'd want to look at it, talk to the artist, you know. I trade with a lot of artists that do all kinds of work. Not all the work I trade for is native art. But I do a lot of work with native kids on the reservation, and I save their work because they're like kids, you know, 4th and 5th graders. They just draw it and leave it. But I make them sign it, and someday when they're famous, I'm going to cash in on all my free stuff that I did when I was young. I don't know. Some of the kids is really into it, and some could care less, you know, about their own culture. Yeah, that's the way it is all over, though. Other than that, that's about it.
Thank you guys all for coming.
Thank you guys. Yeah, thank you.